Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Emily Gear. I'm a multi-dimensional channel and transformative energy healer. And as promised, I'm here with your weekly energy update for twin flames. I will be doing an extended reading, so you can look in the info box below for the link to that, which is over on Vimeo. But we're going to be answering just a few questions today, as we did the last couple weeks. Same questions. I'm going to try to keep it a little more brief because I do get carried away. And we'll look into the situation and the energy for this week. Before we do that, just briefly, I want to draw your attention to the screen where my website, my web address is displayed. That is how you can contact me if you would like to set up a healing session or a reading. I actually don't distinguish between the types of sessions, only by time. So whatever it is that once I get into the records, we feel you need, or whatever it is that you'd want to do during the session is what we do. So you can check that out on my website. Definitely go ahead and schedule. And I am actually going to be arriving in New York City probably late Tuesday night. So Wednesday or Thursday forward are all fair game for in-person sessions in New York City if you are on the East Coast. And of course, for anyone, any available online Zoom sessions are available to anyone at any time. Or any of the available times, I should say. Anyway, okay, I'll stop rambling. We're going to get started looking at the energies for the coming week. And the first question I always like to ask, of course, I'm already in the records. We're going through the Akashic records, through the Book of Truth for these answers, where I channel in information from the Lords of the Records, from the angels, from Source Creator primarily, and that's where my information comes from. But the first question I wanted to ask was, what is the overall energy affecting the twins at this time? So let's just get an overall energy for what's coming in. If you have not yet watched my weekly energy update for this week, I actually don't date them just in case you find them at another time and they resonate, but you can see the day that I uploaded the video. So if you did not watch that yet, I would definitely recommend it, because honestly, almost all of, even though I intend it for the collective, nearly all of my viewers are on that kind of a sacred union path at this point. Okay. So what is the overall energy affecting the twins at this time? The overall energy. Nice. None of this is shocking. We're going to get into the breakdown of the masculine or feminine in just a minute, but we're going to start with these cards. I also want to apologize. My voice is hoarse. I am coughing. I've had a hell of a year as far as my respiratory system is concerned, and now I am knee-deep in fall allergies out here in the Midwest. Okay, so the first two cards that came out are the Nine of Swords, Darkest Fears, and this is the Balance card. I think this is the Temperance card in the traditional tarot. And this is the Psychic Tarot of the Heart by John Holland. If you are not familiar, almost everyone knows this deck. So as I spoke about in the collective video, a lot of people have definitely been going through really looking at their deepest, darkest fears, or things that are not working for them in their lives, things that are really require them, they're not aligned with their true selves, and they may be stepping into a more powerful position within themselves to sort of usher in balance. And I think that in facing these fears, or in seeing these fears, or in feeling these fears and going through these fears, there's a kind of, we were talking in the other video, definitely watch it since it's coming out right here. There's a kind of alchemy that takes place when you simply allow yourself to address the energies as they come along and not either push them away or shove them down. And people push them away for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's because it's painful. Sometimes because it's confusing or scary. Other times it's because they don't know what it is and they simply don't know how to process it, so they push it away. Well, if you're here, you're somewhere on your ascension path. And so everything, you know now that everything that comes to you is in some way pointing you to somewhere in your life where you are not fully aligned with who you are. And this sort of darkest fears energy, the Nine of Swords energy, this is a full disjointed misalignment, okay? However, like I'm always saying, even though you're in this energy, it does not mean you're off your path. In fact, sometimes it means you are directly on it, because you might need to confront this in order to bring yourself a greater sense of balance, a greater sense of fulfillment, okay? If you were never put in this energy to have to feel the discomfort, would you look at any of this stuff? No, you wouldn't, because you wouldn't even know it was there. So that is the main trigger to reaching this kind of balance. You see them, the man and the woman, the masculine and the feminine together on this card, and it's called balance. And it is really, truly, the Temperance card is all about coming into that balance within yourself. And there is a kind of alchemical change within you when that begins to happen. Now, I will say for my part, this past week, this was not a full revelation, because I have been aware that the masculine energy I have been operating from for most of my life has been the wounded masculine, okay? It's the one that goes in and like takes no prisoners and conquers all and wants to achieve and succeed all the time and does not want to lose and is really overly upset. I mean, there are a million ways that the wounded masculine comes out. That's how it sort of came out for me. And something clicked in this past week where I allowed my inner divine masculine to come out and say, this is what we will allow. This is how we're going to protect ourselves. I say that in plural, not to sound insane, but just to acknowledge the fact that we have many different energies within us that all combine to become us, right? And I feel that I stepped forward into that power in a way that I don't think I ever have in my life for a number of issues. You might have heard on the other video that I mentioned to people who are, I feel, overstepping my personal boundaries, that I'm not on YouTube to get dates, and I'm not. So I said it, and hopefully I said it in a way that was firm, but maybe at least didn't turn everyone's hearing off. But frankly, I don't care. I said what I needed to say, and it's fine, and I'm moving on. But there were other ways in which I stepped out as well, in telling, in some cases backing up, slowing down, and taking things slower so that I could more, in a more structured and logical way, process what's going on instead of like trying to fly through it as quickly as possible and get to the end and conquer some thing that I perceived was there. I don't know if I'm making a ton of sense. Okay. So I'm probably losing you. I can get off of that, but I did want to say that that energy for me came up in this past week, and it may be coming up for you, where you're actually through these fears coming up, coming into greater balance. And if you are not already, then take this as a prompt to begin to look at the places where you may be operating out of your wounded masculine or feminine energy. And it may be time to usher in, it's always time to usher in the healthy version, the divine version of that energy instead. Okay. So greater balance coming in through a kind of transitional process. I keep using the word alchemy, and it keeps coming up because I keep being drawn and driven back to the planet of Pluto and where it is in our charts right now. I'm not seeing it in the rest, maybe a little bit coming up out here, but that was weighed heavily in the collective reading as well. And I associate Pluto with alchemy. and with sort of the digging up of the dirty underbelly, okay? All the deepest fears, and kind of bringing them out in the open so that they can be balanced and turned into something else. And that something else is the true core self, okay? Who you really are when you are in your divine essence, and who we are as people is our divine essence, because that is what we come from. That is what we are. The next two cards to come up here are the Heal card, which is the Star, and the Six of Swords, which are both about healing. These are both two cards about healing. And I feel like this is kind of the flavor of the healing, but that healing is taking place in a massive way, okay? Both this 14 and 17 card are major arcana. These are big energies. With the Star and the numbers in the Six of Swords, I just want to... This is interesting. One is a man, one's a woman. And I'm hearing that they are experiencing their healing in parallel, but sometimes different ways. But it is happening for all right now. And that this is the energy, this is the flavor of it for everyone at this moment. So it is a little bit intense, but it is being experienced for most people individually, like seemingly separately, but not really. Parallel, but really together. Okay. You are on the threshold of a new beginning. Like, that is part of what both of these cards are about, though. But really the Six of Swords to me about crossing the troubled waters, reaching the new shore. And the Star so much about sort of cleansing and clearing and lifting and enlightening and ascending, right? These are all cards that mean a new beginning, which also came out in the collective reading. So check that out. The hearts are highlighted in all of these cards here. So there is a huge heart healing going on. To me, that's about the core truth. And the Six is about the truth also. Actually, all of these are about the truth. And this highest ideal, I think that we think it is far away, right? Like the Star, but it's not. It's actually right in here. That's your core. It's within you. That energy is contained within you, while it is also with your higher self and with source energy. Those are all directly linked. And that core energy, I feel when I work with it and activate it, it is in the area of the heart chakra, but it is not the heart chakra, if that makes sense. It is also not the emotions, which I also brought up in the collective reading. That is a very different thing. So this is not being like following your heart. For me, doesn't mean follow your emotions. Okay, this is a totally different kind of truth that we're following here. And this is really getting to know what that is. And I think a lot of old conceptions of what that is are getting cleared away now. So much of this is repeating the collective reading that I'm not going to continue down that road, but definitely watch that. The next two cards that came out are Challenging Times with Listen. So this is the Five of Wands with the High Priestess. And this pair of cards feels very similar to Balance plus Darkest Fears, because we are talking about something that is buried deep within, and it is a discordant, it's a somewhat discordant feeling. But I'm actually not hearing it. I am hearing it like that, but it's not as heavy as the darkest fears. It's more like if you listen to your body and to your core self, your truth, the way that you are, your feelings. There's a little bit about the emotions here, but the emotions are very changeable and they are very much subject to programming, and they are very much subject to fear. Okay? So if you really check in with your core self in your heart space, minus the emotions, minus the racing thoughts, the place where that kind of discordant energy is happening, either on the physical scale or more on a kind of etheric scale, is what we need to listen to in order to point us to what needs healing at this time. But more than that, it's almost like that is the get up and go. That's the thing pushing us forward right now. So take this time, even if it might feel slow, because like I said, there's some solitary energy coming out here. There's some like far away kind of hoping and praying type energy here. This is serving to push you forward in a way that you might not have been moving forward before. The reason for that is, I actually hear that it's coming from your higher self at times. Some of it's coming from your higher self, which is involved with your intuition. They're not exactly the same thing, but it is involved with your intuition. And it's breaking down some of the shields that you have kept up, not only because you were trying to protect yourself, because it wasn't time to take them down yet. This whole thing is a fucking journey. Like, you have to realize and not be upset with yourself when you realize there's another thing to clear. And maybe you aren't, but I know that's a tripping point for me. So I always bring it up. You're exactly where you need to be right now. You may be circling around to some lessons that have come up in the past, and that's also okay. Because you're clearing them from a different perspective, if that makes sense. That's what they're saying right now. So you may clear something in one timeline or one version of yourself, but then as you heal and you choose other timelines, that may come up in slightly different versions that still need to be cleared. Now, this does not happen endlessly, usually. Eventually, these timelines, the energy of momentum is greater than the energy of this sort of blockage, and so the timelines collapse, is what they're showing me. I'm just sharing this with you. I'm not thinking it through logically to try to explain it, but this is literally what they're showing me right now. And so that is why, for some of us, we are repeating some lessons, and it's not that we're actually repeating them. We're experiencing them from a higher timeline, from a higher plane, from a higher dimension than we did the first time around. And so the effects are different, the momentum is different, the clearing is slightly different. It's like getting a more broadly filled out or rounded out. It's like rounding out your education is what they're showing me. Like when you're in college and you're at a liberal arts college like I went to, and you pick all these different kinds of classes to round out your education. So you're rounding out your education right now. Okay. So that's what I have coming up for the group energy for the twins in general. Now we're going to move on to, which deck do I want to use for the divine masculine? Let's go with, I'm just going to go ahead and use the other psychic, the actual psychic tarot. I don't know why I want to call these psychic tarot, but everything else is a tarot to me. Okay, so now we're going to go into how is a divine masculine feeling. So this could be a man or a woman, as you know. but is somebody who is predominantly carrying the masculine energy and is carrying the template for the divine masculine. The ascended divine masculine, I should say. What's the divine masculine feeling at this time? Okay, I'm going to start here. I've got 2 7 cards. Number 7, triumph, and number 7, deception and envy. This is the Chariot with the 7 of swords. And remember when I said get up and go, the get up and go energy? That's coming out here again. And it's coming out because of a real, this card, this one came out in the collective reading as well. It's coming out in response to this kind of kick in the ass regarding things that just don't feel right anymore. They might not know what the fuck doesn't feel right anymore, but they're like, I don't even want to say that they are just like going like gangbusters, like at the divine feminine or at a specific goal. I think what they're doing, what I'm really feeling right now, is they may be in a place where they're like, I don't know what's going on here, but this is not fucking working for me anymore. And so the impetus here is to really get to that level of truth. And they know it now on like, I'm getting it on like a mental level. They might not know yet what that truth is, but they're like, this is not working. It's just, they're showing like this other level of underbelly kind of showing that they were like, oh shit, that's there? I didn't even know that was there before. So in a lot of cases, this is just something that's just now sort of coming to their awareness. In some place where they were not aligned. So relationships that are not aligning, jobs that are not aligning, especially behavior patterns that are not aligning, addictive patterns that are not aligning, things where they're like, I am wasting my life right now. Like that is something that's coming up for at least some of these people. They're truth seeking right now. And that's definitely come up at least the last month, I think. I do feel a renewed energy of like divine masculine. They're sometimes flipping into their wounded masculine. But this card indicates to me that there's a desire to improve their lives. It's really the way they're thinking of it. They're not running around being like, oh, I'm not in alignment. I mean, maybe some of them are, you know, and I say them, obviously, because I'm coming from the feminine perspective, and we have many or some incredible divine masculine folks who watch my videos. And so in this case, you might be using those words, but a lot of these folks aren't. But I do want to say that they're kind of getting more into that energy of chivalry. And that's not to say that they're coming to the divine feminine right now and making an offer and all that shit that people like to hear. But I feel like they're becoming their own hero in a way that maybe they haven't been before, because they were in this energy of feeling like they had to lay down all of their truth in order to live out some kind of program, or some literally living out a lie in some cases. You know, this can be played out in different levels of severity, I think, for different people in different situations. But they are now essentially coming to their own rescue, which is exactly what they needed to do. Now, they might just be starting this. So I do not want to create any expectations. We'll see what else wants to come out. But I feel like this is all about getting it right within themselves, finally. And I say finally not as a divine feminine, but I say finally as, honestly, if I really want to look at this, it's like my inner divine masculine coming to my own fucking rescue this week in a number of different ways. I'm sorry, I'm cursing a lot. That I was just like, when it became clear what I needed to do, I was like, why didn't I already do this? Why was this so hard? Why was I trying and I was pushing so hard through my wounded masculine self? Or maybe even through, in some ways, through my divine feminine self, but my divine feminine doesn't push, it just accepts. And then my wounded masculine would come out and make a mess of the whole thing. So I feel like this is very much in line maybe with what I experienced. And they may or may not have the words to describe what that feels like or looks like for them, okay? I think to them it's about fixing, making their lives better, finally. There are too many cards here. Well, what was the next question? I didn't even ask the question. I just started shuffling. I get ahead of myself and I don't pay attention to what I do. Okay, we're going to do it anyway. So the first card that popped on its own here, I'm still talking about how is a divine masculine feeling? But the next question was, what does a divine masculine have to work on? And this probably is accurate for that as well. So I'm just going to deliver the message as it is, okay? We've got the number 5 card, which is wisdom. It's the equivalent of the Hierophant or the Pope, depending on what deck you're using. I'm definitely drawn to the sun and the sun rays and the way they pour over this like monk or teacher's shoulder. He's like a monk or something. Yeah, he's got the monk haircut. And it feels like, what's interesting is this feels like a sunset, not a sunrise. And yet you can feel the warmth and the enlightening of the sun as you look at it. It's like if you were standing in a warm sunlight and the sun was so bright, it's just pouring over you with those golden rays. There's a sense of enlightenment and a sense of peace. And yet also the sun going down on something. And it feels really like there's now an understanding or a wisdom about what isn't good for them anymore. It's detaching from all this stuff that they were using in their lives. I'm hearing the word skip steps. It's almost like they jumped on these, okay, I don't know why they're doing this. So when you're a kid, you go on a scavenger hunt and you have to collect different things, right? Different items on a list. And I feel like they've been going throughout their lives collecting these items on the list because they were supposed to have it. A job, a partner, a child, 2 children and a dog, a house in the suburbs, any of those things, or like whatever it is for them. Like that's not everybody, obviously. And it's like they did not always select from their highest selves. They often may have selected from their wounded selves, from the self that was so worried about checking off all the boxes on the list that they didn't maybe make the best choice, or maybe they made the best choice they could at the time, but the way that the ascension cycle, the life cycle, the life path, the karmic loop, whatever you want to call it, goes, it is now the sun going down on that piece, and a great wisdom having been gained from that piece about what the core self is, of what the core self wants. And this is that momentum moving forward toward the truth of what that really is. So there is an understanding coming through here. There is wisdom coming through here. There is forward movement coming through here, even if it's just internal right now. Okay. And that's how it feels right now. And that's what makes sense, because when I'm all talking about the overall energy of the fire lit under the ass, it's kind of an internal process at this time. And this reading is only meant to encompass a week. Okay. The next cards coming up for him, though, are two aces, the Ace of Pentacles and the Ace of Wands. Comes out with the 14 card, which is patience or temperance. The second time it's shown up in this reading. And then that comes out with the sacral chakra and moving on, the Six of Swords. Again, the second time that comes up in this reading. And what I'm hearing is they're putting some major childhood wounds to rest right now. And they are definitely getting a restart, both energetically and in the physical world, because of their, I don't want to just say patience, I want to say their acceptance. I want to put the word acceptance with this card as well, of the situation as it is, so that they can heal this wound of non-acceptance. There's something in this sacral chakra about non-acceptance, about not feeling safe on some level to be who and what you are, but also just to exist as who and what you are. This is like before the personality even comes through. This is just you as a creative being, you as a being in acceptance of who and what you are. And there's wounding there surrounding, there's wounding there coming out of childhood is really what I'm feeling. This to me also is driving me toward childhood. And so here is the recovery. This is the recovery from that, from the dark into the light, into this sense of enlightenment. And the word illusion keeps wanting to come out. But what I really mean to say is illumination, but out of illusion into illumination is accurate for what I'm trying to say here. There's a lot of illusions that they have been in for literally a lifetime that came out of this sacral chakra wound, the mother-father wound. It is what they were taught. It is how they were treated. There's something big here for a lot of them about codependency. There's something big here. For some of them, they have mothers who were overly dependent upon attention from their children, their male child. And they may have some of them even overshared to these male children, or they put a lot of emotional burdens on their male children when they were young. It could have been a female too, but I'm mostly getting males here because we're talking about the divine masculine. But again, that could also be a female. So they're clearing this energy, which is really, it's a little fucked up, to be honest. It's not full on like, I mean, maybe for some of them there is some sort of sexual abuse going on here. I'm not getting full on sexual abuse for most of them, but there is some sort of inappropriate mother wound that revolves around male attention and demanding that from the son, which came through probably as really high expectations. And really, some of them mind games about around like caretaking of the mother and her emotional states. I know all this is coming out. Maybe this has some, maybe some of you will relate to this, okay? But I feel like that is one of those wounds that's really deep in the underbelly, so to speak. You know, it almost conjures up feelings of shame in some people. I mean, definitely, you know, not that you should be ashamed of this, but most people who have gone through some sort of sexual abuse are harboring shame, okay? For others, it's not about sexual abuse. It's just about the shame of not being whatever fucking crazy ideal your mother, your parent, your teacher, your mentor put out there for you. Because how could you be an ideal? You're perfect. You're perfectly you. You're not perfectly whatever the fuck somebody else cooked up, right? So there's nothing wrong with not being that. It's actually perfect that you aren't, because you need to be you. Here's that new beginning that's coming in for them. Okay. I'm going to go with one more question. That was a really long, just kind of freestyle read. I'm going to go ahead and ask, what does the divine masculine need to work on? Although that was a pretty clear thing. Sort of they're almost saying like origin stories. They're origin stories. They're origin wounds. They're wounding from being born into this world. What does the divine masculine need to work on? Here's that safety again. Base chakra and stand your ground. I really feel like this is about reclaiming your power. This is your closest to the earth chakra within the physical body. There are more under the physical body within the energy bodies. But to me, this feels like in your physical life, claiming your power. And the sun is here, or what I perceive to be the sun, whatever the fuck it is. And that feels like truth. It feels like illumination. It feels like fearlessly, when you're standing your ground, fearlessly standing in your truth about what you are worth and deserve, what you are no longer willing to put up with, what you need to do for yourself to be your own hero. And I just said the words origin story, but those are superhero story words, right? So this is your story. This is going back to the origin story that makes you, like, it just speaks about you in terms of superheroes, which I'm not hugely into. So if that came out, there's got to be something in the power of that is important right now. And it could be the duality that's highlighted in many of those stories. And yet here we are collapsing duality into unity consciousness. But for whatever it's worth, that's really what I'm hearing. This is you being your own hero here. And that's what needs to be worked on. Obviously, standing in your power, standing your ground, knowing your worth. And only interacting with things, it's a 1 and a 7. We've got tons of 1s and 7s. Everything's a 1 and, not everything, a lot of stuff's a 1 and a 7 today. Only interacting with things in your physical world that are in alignment. So you're standing your ground. It's for your own protection, but we talk vulnerability around here too, right? And so real protection is a space in which it is safe enough to be vulnerable. And that is what you're creating. That's it. That's what needed to come out. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to the divine feminine. What am I use for her? I'm going to go back to my Moonchild Tarot for the divine feminine. So how is the divine feminine feeling this week? How's the divine feminine feeling this week? Oh, I meant to do the archetype cards. Maybe we'll do that at the end. We'll do the archetype cards at the end. How's the divine feminine feeling this week, please? Judgment with the Three of Wands. This came up last time, and I think this exact card came up. But there's these two girls, and they're wearing the same clothes, basically. They look like twins, right? I just want to say you might be in a place where you're evaluating if you want to keep doing this. And what they're saying right now is like, that's fine. That's probably good. And it is good because that's where you need to be right now. And the perspective they want to sort of issue to you at this moment is that it's not so much a doing that you're doing, it's a living and a being, that you can't be anything other than what you are. And so if you are this, if you are living your twin flame journey, and I hate those words, I use them because we need to communicate, and so therefore I will allow myself to put those labels on it. But essentially, we're all in a journey toward unity consciousness, toward smashing duality, which causes pain in our lives. And it causes a schism in the entirety of existence, right? So if you're doing this, the perspective they want you to see it as is like, you don't really need to do this so much as you are simply living it. My mom's calling me. 99% sure she wants... Oh, never mind. I want to see where they're going with this. Call her back. It is good for you to evaluate or reevaluate because it helps you to align more properly, more directly to your own truth, again, because we're back to the idea of truth, to what it is that you're aligning to in your life, which is all about the idea of, which is all about, calling in your manifestations, calling in the energies that you are want to align with in your life. Let's put it that way. But I feel like what they're saying here is that it matters and it doesn't matter what you do, because you cannot do anything but be who you are. And whether you choose to reject this now or later, you cannot go astray because your lesson, your experience is going to continue to come back around and give you more and more choices to choose unity consciousness. They sort of don't care. I mean, because if for you, twin flame journey is all about like sacred union in the physical world with this other person, you're kind of missing the hugeness of the journey. That's not to say that it's not okay to want that, but really the journey is about unity consciousness, okay? And so I feel like there is some sort of back and forth. I mean, I've been in this place absolutely in this last week. So I'm not judging anyone. Where you're like, do I want to do this? Do I want to continue this shit? Am I telling myself a lie? All of that is coming up. And that is because we're focusing on the wrong thing. We're not focusing on the fact that this really is about union within ourselves, union with source, union with the all, everything. And realizing there's no difference between any of us that is real. There are only illusory differences, illusions. And so this is just a part of your path. No matter what you've chosen now, you can't be anything other than what you are. And I'm just going to leave it at that. You could decide what that means to you, okay? This just popped out. And here we have the star again for the second time in this reading. And the moon child. I'm getting through these two cards, and this is weird because it's not exactly what I would have thought intellectually, but what I'm actually getting at the second is a kind of tiredness to this ascension journey. This card sometimes means ascension to me, and it feels that way right now. This feels like an emotional darkness. The dark side of the moon. But it feels like you're in the process, and maybe this week is what is coming up for you, of being in acceptance of that. And that's what's so important, because yes, we are all fucking tired. I am. But you can't be anything other than what you are. And being in acceptance of that is immediately transforming, honestly. I feel my energy shift in this moment. You are ascending, whether you're trying to or not, by being awake and conscious and aware of your current alignment, your shifting alignments, allowing them to take place, following your guidance, taking guided steps, respecting and accepting yourself as you are, and trusting and accepting your divine blueprint, who you are as a divine being, as part of the divine. Okay? And there need not be, I think it's this woman's face that's doing it for me. You might feel like that, but I feel like so much of this is about not doing the allowing piece. That exhausts us, not doing the allowing, the trying to force, make things happen, or resisting. That's exhausting. So simply being in acceptance of who you are, even if you're reevaluating or evaluating what that is. Because when you get a glimpse of what that is, then you can be in acceptance of it. It's that simple. So this process is all so divinely orchestrated, and every piece of it's important. And we so often will judge where we are in our journey and place a negative emotion on it, which is not necessary in any way. Just be in acceptance of where you are. Okay? What does the divine feminine need to work on? That's the next question. What does the divine feminine need to work on? I mean, I kind of just talked about that. That's how my readings go. I say it all before I ask the questions, and then it's like, well, what does the divine feminine need to work on, please? I'm getting a ton of energy downloads right now. I'm just going to intend that if it's appropriate for you to receive this, that you are receiving them also. Queen of Cups, 10 of Wands, 7 of Swords for literally the third time today in 3 different sections of readings. I'm just getting that it is a huge burden to be anything other than what you are. And being what you are is a compassionate act to yourself and everyone around you. Even if you're afraid that people are judging you or you're judging yourself, that it is a compassionate act to be only who you are, because when you're out of alignment, you're not acting with your true potential, is one way they're putting it, but it feels different to me. It's not really about potential. It's about, you're not acting in grace, is the other word they're saying, grace. And this brings like a divine blessing into your life and everyone else's life when you are in alignment. When you are not in alignment, you're not acting in grace somehow. These are not words that I normally use, so I'm interested in where they're going. Queen of Wands and the Universe. Okay. There is a huge opening up that is happening for the Divine Feminine right now. And it could be for everyone, but this is how it's coming out in the Divine Feminine reading. This is fucking powerful energy. This is really, again, talking about becoming who you are. This is like a spark of the divine with the power of the universe behind it, the expanse of the universe behind it. You are like stardust, like it's kind of the words that are coming through for me right now. And we belittle and play down who we are, trying to fit into some mold, and this really is exactly what came out for the Divine Masculine. So it could be that we're all having the same experience this week. Trying to conform to the lie someone told you about yourself. That is one of my favorite phrases these days. And it is actual compassion. And the reason why I think this is coming up is I think that confronting this energy and being this energy feels to the Divine Feminine in some cases like you are hurting or disappointing others in your life because you're not playing the role that you're stepping out of, or starting to refuse to play the role that you were playing, because that role was not in alignment with who you really are, okay? You're not disappointing anyone. You're only disappointing everyone if you are not in alignment with yourself. And I almost wonder if part of this is about this kind of judgment of your twin flame journey, which is fine. I'm not judging the judgment, because if you're there, you need to be there for a reason, okay? And so I think maybe this is kind of about, don't fear other people's reactions to your stepping into your power, to use a catchphrase, to your drinking in of this kind of cosmic power that you are absolutely part of, even if you have felt disempowered your entire life, even if you have felt things have been dictated for you your whole life, or you have been given a set of instructions that you felt you needed to follow. Even if you liken yourself a rebel, even in being a rebel, so many times we are following the prefabbed fucking recipe of what a rebel looks like, okay? None of that stuff matters. But only thing that matters is what's really in there, what's really authentically in there. And both of these cards are absolutely about what's really in there. Who are you and how powerful you are, okay? And I think that there are some big revelations coming up about where we have this woman looks impaled, where we have impaled ourselves, broken our backs. This woman looks impaled too. Lied to ourselves, the lies that we've told ourselves about ourselves or others have told us about ourselves. So this is some difficult energy that's coming up, and I do again feel like it has a little bit to do with the creeping up to Scorpio season, right? Where we always are looking at the underbelly, the transformative, our transformative needs, the places in which we need to kind of alchemize the negative energy, change it, transform it, transmute it within ourselves. And what is operating in the subconscious without our knowledge? This stuff. What's in there operating? Okay? Sometimes just like being aware of it changes the entire situation. But you are like as expansive as the universe. You are capable of all of this. And all I'm hearing now is have no fear. Just have no fear. I think they want me to wrap it up with the idea of having no fear about changing, that doesn't make you inconsistent. It makes you who you are, more of who you are, okay? As long as you're changing in alignment with who you are. And what is that? Well, you can only do that. You can only know that when you allow yourself to fall out of the habits and patterns and the checklists that others have given to you. How does it feel? And what does it do to you? How does it feel and what does it do to you? That should be your guide about what is appropriate to continue or not, if you don't know. I try to break it down, and I'm usually going too far with it. Most of you know what doesn't feel right, okay? You don't need me to tell you how to feel that. All right, so what I want to do, I got these archetype cards that I used in the general reading by Kim Kranz. She's the one who does the Wild Unknown Tarot and the Oracle, Animal Oracle. I love her drawings. So I'm going to pull one for the Divine Masculine first to see what archetype he is working through at this time. I'm still also, because there's so many of these cards, I'm still reading the book on these, but they're pretty insightful. And they're, excuse me, not long. So we're going to do that. Okay, so which archetype card has a message? Let's do it this way. Which archetype card represents what the Divine Masculine is working through at this time? They want me to change that. Which archetype represents the Divine Masculine at this time? Oh gosh, this is interesting. The mother. Did we not just talk about the mother wound in the masculine reading? So let's see what wants to come up here. Literally no idea. And it is the first card in this whole deck. It's the number 1 card. So it makes me feel like it's like a beginning for them in some sense. And they did get a couple aces as well. They or you or whatever. I don't ever know who I'm talking to. Okay. The mother, the great mother, the feminine, the source. We begin our archetypal story with the mother's love. Through her sensual, fertile, and life-giving energy, all creation takes form. Regardless of our birth story, we were talking origin stories, each of our hearts beats for the first time in the warm womb of the mother, where she offered resources from her body to the building of our own. Yet her tale is not so simple, as the mother, especially on the earthly plane, contains both light and dark aspects of the feminine. With the best of intentions, the mother wraps her loving arms around her creations and begins to grip what she meant to set free. The mother both nurtures and prohibits growth. She gives, yet she clings. She creates, yet restricts. Amid this complex energy, the mother holds the key to the eternal challenge of love. And so no wonder they're working through that sacral chakra energy, that mother wound, and even the father wound. But it was feeling so much like the mother wound. And that overburdening of the male child or any children with the mother's needs, or the codependent nature, the controlling, the wanting to continue to control, the holding on to of the children. So that's really interesting. So it's like they're breaking free from a lot of that kind of energy, which may go back to, I just love these pictures, which may go back to their relationship or their experience with their mother or a mother figure of some kind. There are a couple more things she puts in here. So the light attributes here are glowing, generative, creative, and nurturing. The dark side, though, is dim, exhausted, controlling, and limiting. If you want to go deeper with reading or music, she puts like books or music. Read the Tao Te Ching, chapter 1, and imagine the mother of 10,000 things. And the mother is part of the trifecta, maiden, mother, crone. Because of the relationship between them, take special note when these cards appear in one reading, is her note to the reader, but I like to read these because some of them have some really good insights. Notice how the mother archetype is expressed in nature. This is perhaps the most balanced and benevolent form of the mother's grace. So that's interesting as well. We've been talking about the heart, the core, the truth, and I just find it interesting and focus on that pearl there. And what bit of the truth is part of this mother relationship, mother wound, and yet there's all this other stuff kind of surrounding it, and getting to that core, getting to that truth is the process, is the journey. Okay, so that's for the divine masculine. Let's go for the divine feminine now. What is the archetype which represents the divine feminine at this time? This is potent. The orphan. I remember literally saying to someone like a week ago, when I was in a space where I felt uncomfortable, saying that I felt like an orphan in that place, like I didn't belong. And I knew that the belonging was all about my acceptance of myself in that space. But it felt external, even though I knew better. But it was something that I was working through at that time. So let's see what this has to say. The orphan, the wounded child, the abandoned, the beggar. Again with the wounded child stuff. To study the orphan is to study the deep and challenging energy of our time. We are ever more connected, yet face collective isolation. The refugee crisis haunts our planet. Children are separated from parents, and the earth begs for our attention. We are in a time of universal orphanage, of nature, of each other, of our own hearts. Take refuge in the fact. This is now connecting me to that universe card and the idea of unity consciousness. Take refuge in the fact that we all share this core wound and dilemma. It's normal to fear this card as it haunts the caverns of the soul. When it appears, take time, real time, to be in the presence of the feelings this card stirs in you. Let it humble you. What are you starving for? What is the deepest gift you could imagine giving to others? What has been rejected is quite possibly what is most needed, dear one. Okay, the light aspects, deep solace, deep acceptance, deep love. We were just talking about deep, deep acceptance. Wow, okay. When dark, distance, hates and avoids, controlling and limiting. Very similar to the mother on that. To go deeper, you can read Mary Oliver's The Kitten. And access this archetype through creative acts like drawing, painting, or writing. Keep it simple. Ask the orphan what it wants to draw, make, or say. So ask your own inner orphan what they want to draw, make, or say, and then let them do that. And then tenderness beyond tenderness is required. Imagine holding yourself in your hands to recognize that each one of us fears rejection and isolation. And doing this is to take one step toward the orphan. More kindness always. So that makes a lot of sense, especially the drive to see ourselves as part of the whole and not an individual necessarily. And not conforming to a list that was given to us necessarily. And if we cannot or do not conform, that we are not somehow other, that we're not somehow outside of, that we are simply exactly who we are, and we cannot be anything than who we are, like we were talking about in the very beginning of the Divine Feminines. And being in acceptance of that is all about addressing the orphan archetype. Okay? I'm going to end it there. I will go and do an extended read, which will go more in depth into what the Divine Masculine and the Divine Feminine individually are going through or thinking about or feeling or healing at this time. Okay? So look for that. The Vimeo link should be in the description box below, and I will see you over there. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And just to show you again, here's my website so that you can set up a private consultation if you like. And you can also take a look at my website for some email options as well. Okay? I will see you guys soon, and thank you so much if you sat through this whole thing. It's been an hour. Thank you, thank you. And thanks for your likes, subscribes, and shares, and I will see you soon. Bye.